Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for another session of Daftarkhwan Insights. My name is Fariel. I am the marketing manager here at Daftarkhwan. For 4 years, Daftarkhwan has been building a co-working community of entrepreneurs and professionals working on some of the most exciting business ideas in Pakistan. This community has now grown to hundreds of people across multiple cities and aims to empower businesses across the board in their journey to growth and scale. So through these sessions, we learn from some of the most brilliant professionals across all walks and allow their expertise to help shape how each of us have set out to change the world through our life's work. So today, our guest is Shazia Amin. She is the Senior Insights Manager at Edge by Ascential. So today we're going to talk to her a little bit about unlocking the potential of e-commerce in Pakistan. So without further ado, I'll let Shazia get into this call now. Hi, Shazia.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. So let's get straight into it. So I'm just going to share my screen. So let me know when you can see.
Okay. Yeah, I can see the screen.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So making the case for e-commerce in Pakistan couldn't have come at a more relevant time. So right now, we've even in the news we've been seeing the recent developments for Pakistan to be added to the Amazon sellers list. We're in the COVID-19 pandemic, so there's a changing environment for digital shoppers to be able to get into the main space and create their shopping experiences. Now, the e-commerce acceleration isn't just a pandemic-driven blip. It's been around, especially more prevalent in the Western world for years and years now. And what we need to think about in this particular part of the world is making sure that organizations not only understand what e-commerce is, but they actually start moving and shifting towards living and breathing e-commerce. Now, what we usually do is when we're working with multinational companies, we kind of give them a few pointers in the factors of what to consider when creating a digital ecosystem for geared up for e-commerce, but also to be able to really understand what is the use case for success online in an e-commerce driven world, right? A lot of the brands that we work with they're the P&Gs, the Nestle's, the Coca-Colas of this world. The first thing that we have to really push home with a lot of our messaging is that there is no comparable growth alternative. E-commerce is the biggest opportunity by a considerable margin, regardless of your category. So you need to be there. Otherwise, you risk losing the category share to your main competitors, right? A lot of our brands and manufacturers that I often consult, they firstly ask me, what is a return on investment? If I go and create the infrastructure to drive an e-commerce operating model, what does that actually give me in return if I'm only going to be making a small percentage of sales, right? If I'm making 96% of sales are generated, through traditional models, who cares about the remaining 4%? Actually, leading brands are achieving similar margins online than they are offline. So if you're able to make the same margin online versus, as a comparison to offline, and your retail and your competitors are also dominating that space, you it's kind of being counterproductive in the way you're gearing yourself up to over the next few years. So winning e-commerce isn't just a hobby. Successful e-commerce requires a strategy, right? It requires coordination, investment across multiple functions. So there's, looking out for the typical cross-functional departments that you'll see in a traditional model. So sales, marketing, product development, and supply chain, they all need to be on board and aligned to be able to gear you up to win on e-commerce. Now, this is something that, the Unilevers and the Nestle's of this world are also recognizing, right? So if multinational companies are now accepting this, there's no reason why emerging markets such as Pakistan should not be gearing themselves up for success. Maybe not so much now, but definitely within the next few decades. Now, online success will impact in-store success, and we've seen multiple examples of this in the Western world. Many retailers rationalize shelf space. So if you think about having your product stocked on a digital shelf, versus a more mainstream supermarket. Think about the Carrefours or the Walmarts. Retailers will not give you the same space online or offline if you are not able to drive their online operating models. Now, we've seen this with a great example actually is the Huda Beauty influencer slash blogger. So what she actually did was she drove her e-commerce model. It was predominantly online. And now what we've seen is that because of the shift of the success of her brand and her product, stores are now inviting her to dominate their retail space and offer the assortment in products so that shoppers actually go in store to buy her products rather than going online. So these are the kinds of changes that are actually happening from offline to online. So making sure that you don't just want to set up for online, you also want to consider what nuances that will actually impact you as well as other organizations when you are creating a digital economy and setting yourself up to win on e-commerce. Now, e-commerce is one of the biggest growth opportunities over the next few years. So what you can see here over this graph is basically the top channel global sales from 2020 to projected 2025. And you can see that, supermarkets, discounters, they're not geared up for the same kind of growth that you can see in e-commerce towards the left-hand side of this page. So e-commerce is going to be driving the majority of growth globally over the next few years. So it's just as a fact that this is something that everybody needs to be geared up to acknowledge and gear yourselves up to make the case in Pakistan for investing in e-commerce and e-commerce digital space. Now, again, this is not a category-driven research. If you aren't excelling online, you are losing your share to competitors. Now, this is a graph which shows the total sales on e-commerce for leading brand manufacturers last year. So, if you have a look at Unilever, 9% of their total global sales came from online. And we've actually got some quotes here which show you that, P&G are saying, the market share is slightly higher in e-commerce than it is in brick and mortar. So brick and mortar already saturated. It's very, very competitive to try and get store space. Let's move online. So changing your operating model, gives you the same kind of margin across the two channels. So there's no reason why, the return on investment would be impacted. But, thinking about, if multiple multinationals are thinking about, shifting their business models to operate online, there's definitely a use case that we can learn from the Western world. Again, it's heavily impacting retailers in every region of the world. Here we have a graph showing, again, the projected growth across the various continents over the next few years. So again, Asia Pacific, that's where the boom is coming from. So you can actually see here, a lot of it is coming from, Alibaba, Pinduoduo, so very much, coming from China, but there's no reason why we can't say that we can't capitalize on the making the case for Pakistan's e-commerce journey. Now, your most important global customers are prioritizing e-commerce. So this is the kind of thing that we usually tell, these big brands, what is the primary driver of sales growth for leading retailers? It's definitely coming from, 4 of the top largest retailers in the world are e-commerce driven businesses. 8 of those are the top global retailers. We will see e-commerce introduce or contribute to at least 25% of total sales over the next 5 years. So it's clear that the world's biggest retailers have digital and e-commerce at the center of their future strategy, right? And it's imperative that brands support this transformation in order to capitalize on this growth. Now, the leading retailers have a completely different operating model. Now, a lot of brands that we work with are often telling us of the nuances they face when working with different cross-functional teams. Now, a lot of the multinationals, the Unilevers and Nestle's of this world have an integrated ecosystem where they keep shopper data at its core. So being able to tap into, the shopper data and being able to understand, your shopper, as well as being able to manage the infrastructure around the data is going to give you the competitive advantage of thriving in a digital economy. Now, if we have a look at where Pakistan is, the industry, in comparison to the industry, what we can see is that the industry is more driven towards an algorithm approach, right? So if we're thinking about flexibility at scale, we're thinking about making sure that consumer and data-driven supply chains are geared up for being able to manage customer demand. If we take that a step back, maybe going back to the 1900s, that's where we can see Pakistan. So between generation 1 and sort of generation 2. Now, what this actually means is that a lot of the market in Pakistan actually is quite informal. It's fragmented. There's, it's a lot of smaller merchants, local independent merchants, buying and selling, doing the traditional wholesale model, except for that the distribution and the access to products is one of the challenges that you face. Now, if you think about where we are right now in the Western world, it's all about, being flexible with fulfillment, making sure that you're able to rationalize space in fulfillment centers and and the level of transparency within that. If we see where the shift is actually going to be, and if we have a look at how emerging markets such as Pakistan can bypass generations 2 and 3, they can actually go on and start directly with and pick up from generation 4. It's kind of the way that China has to some degree. And what that actually means is that you don't have to go through the traditional incremental innovation of going from generation 2 to 3. You can go straight on to the online platforms and understand and learn from what has already been developed throughout the Western world, and we can use that to capitalize on. And then if we have a look at 2025 and onwards, it's all going to be about mass personalization. Now, the concentration there is going to be on big data and the effectiveness of the manufacturers to be able to capitalize on big data, right? Fast-paced and agile manufacturers will be dominating that space. If you're able to get your product to the market, to the shopper, before your competitors by leveraging data insights, that's going to be where the competitive advantage is going to be at over the next few years. Now, I've been speaking about why it's important to have e-commerce as part of your strategy, the kind of the operating models. Now, I would like to share with you some insights into the kind of use cases that have been put forward and that we've seen. Whilst I've been supporting multinational businesses in their e-commerce journey, right? So a lot of e-commerce mastery demands adaptation, right, throughout the supply chain. Now, what that means is that, we're going to be seeing an influx in merchants appearing from Pakistan, selling to the US, to the UK, to the Emirates. What we need to consider now is that the e-commerce, it's not just about, simple a pick and a copy and paste model, right, from supplying a discounter to the likes of Amazon. What you need to do is think about how these small factors, such as launching products for e-commerce, are your products actually geared up for e-commerce? Now, this is the kind of consulting that we provide even to the larger multinationals of this world. Not a lot of them, you'll be surprised, are actually geared up in the sense that they actually know how to create the best optimized packaging for e-commerce to help save costs. So here are some examples of what you can think about when you're thinking about launching on let's say, a Daraz or an Amazon. Create e-commerce specific SKUs, right? If you're thinking about selling chocolate bars or selling, let's say, a football, you really should think about how is that going to be packaged up and sold to the end shopper, right? Reduce packaging, think about the sustainability of your product. The Western world, the trend in the Western world is about, sustainability, and, the eco trend is massive. So, having these kinds of things on your products are going to be, very valued by your end consumer. Reducing the packaging, again, is one of those tips that we also share with our customers. Now, one of the most interesting examples that we've actually seen with the brand Tide, which is washing detergent, is they've actually changed their packaging for online purposes. So they've actually designed, rather than you have the bottle of detergent, which is prone to leaking, it's also a very awkward shape to be able to send, especially in bulk if you're sending it to a fulfillment center. These are all the kinds of things that you should be thinking about when you're gearing yourself up to go on to, let's just say, Amazon or Daraz. So really thinking about, changing your packaging, thinking about what is the most optimal way of creating value added products to be able to accelerate online. So specific SKUs, you wouldn't sell a chocolate bar on Daraz or, you know, just a singular one. It would cost you, you would probably be making a loss per unit, right? But if you think about selling, let's say like these Nutrigain with these NutriBars, what they've actually done is they've created carefully, you know, specific pack sizes for specific platforms. So for hypermarkets, 24 bars, you know, and if you're thinking about convenience and discount, it's having specific packaging where you're able to actually share the variety of your products with by, I don't know if you can see it here, but it's like, you know, just to pick up and stack on your shelf kind of thing, so that it's actually not up to, it actually gives the distributor a lot more flexibility in how they actually display their products. And then for Amazon, you have, you know, the 60 bars, thinking about, you know, sort of a value added feature of shopping on Amazon, because you get 60 bars. Most likely it's going to be cheaper by unit. And if somebody is price matching on Amazon, again, these are the kinds of the tips and tricks that you can get from Amazon experts, is like, you know, how you can sort of keep your pricing as a manufacturer very competitive, so that Amazon doesn't take doesn't erode your margin. So there's a lot of stuff that you can actually do. Just think about when you're developing and launching products specifically for e-commerce, you know, and also look for shopper feedback, and think about your product and the proposition that you have to offer. And then it's not just about being online. So what we're seeing in the Western world is essentially, you know, what is the store of the future looking like? So if everybody's gearing up to shop online, what do we do with all the empty space on the shop floor? That actually in the UK is now being repurposed, right? It doesn't mean that, you know, if I'm now going to be online and I'm going to be, you know, what do I do with the extra floor space? Actually, what we're seeing is that the retailers are using their spaces in a different way. We're seeing experience related events happening in the offline store. So things like events, inspiration, there's value added services, frictionless shopping. So things like click and collect. You know, when in a fast moving society and economy, having the frictionless technology is what is actually the convenience that you're able to offer to your shoppers. You know, Amazon recently launched a frictionless store in London very recently. Again, you just walk in, you make your purchases and you walk out. So you don't even have to talk to a cashier or to anybody. You know, being able to create that level of experience is something that is actually driving shoppers onto the high street. And then curated. So curated is a really nice example of creating the value emphasis of a brand. So focusing on fresh, natural, made in store. So all of these things are actually going to be bringing shoppers back into the store. So rather than going in for, you know, just to pick up, let's just say a loaf of bread, it's going to be, you know, the being valued and creating a different proposition is what is actually we're seeing in sort of in more e-commerce advanced markets, that is what the offering is. And then being able to create more of a social environment within the offline store. So things like having a community role, social meeting hub. So, you know, like a babysitters club or a book club, supporting local businesses. That is another way that retailers are repurposing their spaces for the local consumers. Now, if we think about making the case for e-commerce in Pakistan, you know, e-commerce in Pakistan is expected to grow over the next few years, and we've projected it to be around 16% over the next few years. So there's huge potential for growth here. And what we're also seeing, the dynamics of this market is not very much what we're used to seeing in the Western world. So, you know, being able to have access to the internet, having majority of your users owning a mobile and having access to the internet actually opens up sort of the floodgates for everybody to sort of go online as a merchant. 19% of Pakistani population have bought at least one product online in 2020. So what we do not want to neglect here is that we are in a COVID-19 pandemic. Shoppers are looking for alternative ways to get their products. And by breaking down the barriers, you know, being able to access, you know, or being able to set up accounts easily for like Easy Pesa, for example, it's going to make it a lot easier for everybody to do business, not only in Pakistan, but if we are able to support payment systems internationally, that will then really open up more of a level playing field amongst our global counterparts. The number of SMEs in Pakistan, again, 3.2 million, contribute to 40% of the GDP to Pakistan. So that's a huge potential there for that number to increase and for that to open up the floodgates to actually be able to export into the Amazon market. So it's really, really come at a perfect time for Pakistan to be added to the Amazon sellers list. So they remained off the Amazon sellers list. Despite the company's presence being in neighboring India, the Pakistani retailers wishing to sell their products on the marketplace would have to register through other companies or across to be able to sell in other countries. Now what we're seeing is that, however, after being added to the list, Pakistani merchants will be able to sell their products on the platform easily. But this does not mean much for the consumer, right? So, we're not able to benefit from this as a consumer, but hopefully in the future, even if the likes of other pure players, if it's actually becoming easier for us to be able to do that as a shopper on other retailer platforms, the sky is the limit. So with this development, Pakistan has now joined the international market, and this will result in social economic growth for the country, and billions in investment and produce employment opportunities. So really excited for this new development for Pakistan. Thank you very much.
Hey, that was great. So thank you, Shazia, for having this terrific and very insightful session. Guys, we're going to be opening up for Q&A. So if you've got any questions, please write them down, and I'll ask Shazia in a few minutes. So if you've got any questions, please send them across. Really insightful session. I mean, Shazia, I was writing some things down when you were talking. And I think the key takeaways you could say is, e-commerce in Pakistan is a massive growth opportunity here. And, it represents such a huge potential for Pakistanis selling right now. And, with obviously things like Amazon you spoke about, there's a really big opportunity for people to tap into. But I think regardless of category, if you're not considering selling online, you will soon see your competitors dominating your space and gaining that market share.
Absolutely.
So yeah. And the last thing, to be honest, was really interesting for me, because you spoke about, payments and easy paisa and that kind of infrastructure, which doesn't exist in that same way that we have in the UK or the other countries. And I think I could really relate to that, because having seen both markets and how they work, that is a real big gap that I suppose is lagging Pakistan behind.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with you. Being able to if we were able to sort of create a more level playing field and have access to the same resources as we do in the Western world, I think this is one of the, we're a manufacturing country. There's every reason why we should be able to export to the neighboring countries and to the Western world, right? So, we shouldn't have to bypass or create, sort of different strategies. We should be able to do that direct to consumer, right?
And how do you think that would impact, the whole process from, just that point of sale point till, right to all the consumers, even in Pakistan? How do you think that would affect the market?
So I think that opens up the floodgates, right? So by opening up the floodgates, you allow, these millions and hundreds and thousands of merchants to be able to sell, products from Pakistan to the international economy. What worries me, however, is that, by opening up these floodgates, are we going to be losing the quality of the international standards, right? We need to be able to at least match or be better than, the competition in terms of what we have to offer. So that's one of the things that I think is one of the most pressing points that we need to consider when we are considering selling online.
Okay, great. I actually have some questions whilst we wait for people to send theirs in.
Sure.
But with Pakistan now being added to the Amazon sellers list, I know we're talking about this a lot. It's a hot topic in Pakistan right now. Everyone's excited. to finally join. What barriers do you see for Pakistanis trying to get on the main stage and enter the global economy, apart from obviously the one we've just discussed?
Yeah. So I think education, training, and being able to have, the level playing field, right? So if we don't have the ecosystem to set us up for success, it kind of already gives us a disadvantage, right? We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the level of investment and funding that that you get in the West, even in India, right? So if you think about the number, the resource spend on e-commerce in comparison to India, we're like, we don't even make up 10% of this of revenue spend for e-commerce. What we're also thinking about is, education and training. Everybody sort of wants to get on and jump onto the e-commerce bandwagon, and I think it's a great idea, and I'm all for it. It's just making sure that we understand what the implications are as well, right? So not just thinking it's an easy job. It definitely has very rewarding benefits, but let's just think about if we need to do some research, just make sure that everybody is on board with what the implications are, rather than
jumping on ship.
Exactly.
Fair enough. Another one, I suppose, is like the e-commerce industry in Pakistan has a long way to go to achieve the regional parity and reach for global standards. What do you think are the bottlenecks to grow for this market specifically?
Okay, so I would say customer protection, right? As well as being able to have international and domestic payment systems. So if we're not able to have a globally recognized, if we're not able to have the same kind of softwares and that are being adopted or easily adopted and trusted in the West, it's going to be very hard for us to be able to join the global platform, right? So a lot of there are a lot of question marks when it comes to joining or trusting products from Pakistan if we're not able to actually go on and use the same systems and platforms that everybody is aware of, right? It's nothing to do with the Pakistani software or support or infrastructure. It's just more with what everybody else knows, right? So it will take time to adopt, but again, the adoption isn't the same as if you already know. If we're already comfortable with a PayPal, again, it's a payment system that is very safe. We should be able to join that hopefully as well with the latest developments on Amazon. And then customer protection. Customer protection is probably the most important one if you want to be successful on Amazon, right? Making sure that if your quality is not up to a standard, Amazon will penalize you for that, right? If you're not getting the ratings and reviews, you probably might as well it's not worth your while on Amazon. It's a very customer-centric platform. If we're not able to give the customer or fulfill the requirements of the customer to a decent standard, it's going to be very hard for you to actually be profitable on Amazon.
I mean, do you think these same kind of things exist for platforms outside of Amazon as well for people in Pakistan? Because obviously Amazon's just recently come into the picture. Yeah, absolutely. So even if we have a look at Daraz, which is still very, I would say it's still in a very sort of early years of in comparison to an Amazon, right? It's probably it's a baby in comparison to where Amazon is, but definitely it's very similar in terms of the nuances that you will face on Amazon. It's a very similar kind of setup for being successful on Daraz as well. So the algorithms and the what it takes to fuel those algorithms and to get your visibility up on, let's say, Daraz it's slightly different to what it is on an Amazon, but it doesn't mean that that the weightings will be separate or different, but the formulas are pretty much going to be the same. Okay, interesting. Now, I mean, I know a lot of the questions have been about Amazon, even the topics we've touched on, but it's just because everyone, it's like the buzzword,
it's
the thing right
wants
now
to know about.
Exactly.
It is.
And I suppose everyone wants to know, whoever's in this space anyway, is how to make it big on Amazon. Like what are the upcoming trends on Amazon? What is it that people in Pakistan should be selling and can tap into to make the most of it, really?
Okay, so from a UK perspective, what's actually trending now, and what we also see trending on, what is always up there, what you will always expect to be trending on Amazon in the UK, the US, are things like electrical goods, headphones, Bluetooth speakers, and then with COVID-19 and the work from home in the UK over the last few months, we're seeing office furniture. Now with summer approaching, you'll see garden furniture, you'll see barbecue sets. Everybody's looking for those. And what's a really interesting insight, and I was having a look at the Vendor Central this morning, is with the issue or the political issues in Palestine at the moment, we've actually seen the Palestinian flag actually topping topping Amazon's bestsellers. So that was a really interesting insight to see that how many purchases of Palestinian flags were made in order for the actual keyword Palestinian flag to actually be one of the most top searched items on Amazon. But
wow. That's quite interesting. Do you think that's a quite common trend where things that are happening in the media affect what is being purchased and is a top seller in Amazon?
Absolutely. So you will see really crazy trends happening on Amazon, in line with political and social situations, right? So if something is happening in a certain part of the world, you'll start seeing things, you'll see that being reflected in the shopper behavior on Amazon, right? So, Super Bowl is one of the ones that's biggest in the US. We've got Christmas coming up. Gifting is a great opportunity for Pakistanis to tap into right now. It's Christmas is coming up around the corner. If you're wanting to tap into something, it's manufacturing is big here. Gifting is something that is going to be happening. It starts early in the UK as well as in the other countries within the EMEA region and the US, but that's definitely something that you can tap into. Amazon is one of the go-to platforms for seasonal trends as well. So you definitely see. I mean, at the moment, I've seen fidget toys for kids being number one, as well as the PS5. Right. So with COVID and being stuck at home, with irritated mums and dads wanting to please their kids and just to leave them alone, you're seeing fidget spinners keeping the children occupied, as well as things like the PlayStation 5. So these are the kind of common occurrences that you'll see, as well as the seasonal trends. Again, tap into seasonal trends and niche markets. So if you're able to find something which is quite a niche on Amazon, that's something that you should be focusing on. So try and create a value proposition that is unique to your customer base, right? So, I would say probably avoid the headphones. So don't do that. It's already, dominated by so many. It is so saturated right now that, if I were to tell you to spend, go on Alibaba and spend millions on headphones and, and computer tech, you probably won't be, it will probably take you a few months for you to actually try to see some kind of return.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, great. Well, I mean, that was really interesting. For someone who isn't even in e-commerce, I thought that was quite an insightful conversation you just had here. And thank you for your time. And, hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. And take care, Shazia.
Excellent. Thank you for having me.
No worries. Bye-bye.
Bye.